time limit on my phone in terms of the storage of data. So I'm actually doing this recording about the topic of narcissism and everything that I mean I haven't been making these videos, as you all know. I'm not regular, and I don't see a need to, because the thing is this: there is this whole very obsessive thing with some people when they make such content, and sometimes you get the sense that basically they're just out there to get attention. Okay, so yeah, I don't really trust those kind of content make creators, and it's really ridiculous because every video they make, they're just there to criticize people and everything. So but today I just wanted to like talk a little bit more about this particular topic of narcissism and shame. So I was talking to a few friends. Okay, I mean not just on the phone, on chat, WhatsApp chat, but even like personally face to face when I bump into them in the gym. Okay, so I was talking to one particular friend. I asked him like, he teaches Aikido, so I asked him like, how is it, like with narcissism? That's what I say about narcissism and and narcissists and all the encounters. Does it actually make you feel like, oh, it's a bit too much, or that like, does it sound kind of unbelievable? Because that some people actually have this kind of complex where, okay, so something dropped. Oh yeah, when they hear something about narcissism, they think that you're actually creating it just for attention. There are some people who are like that. They don't want to believe that there are people like that on this earth. For them it's like, oh, the world is a really rosy bit of roses, everything is so easy, everyone's so good, and unfortunately that's not the truth. Okay, so we know that with narcissists, once you have encountered one, even just one, you realize that there are indeed some people who are this way. Okay, there's a kind of debate going on now whether they are born this way, the Lady Gaga song "Born This Way," or whether they just like made that way because of nurture, like family upbringing. But I told that friend and about this, and then he said he believes that somehow that he was floating that theory. Is it possible, he asked me, do you think that it's possible that these people uh, were made this way by some kind of the situation and the environment brought it out in them? And I said, yeah, it's possible that the environment brought out that thing in them, but unfortunately, there will be like the age-old argument that everyone is claiming this. I mean, even psychologists and psychiatrists, some psychotherapists, they try to do that kind of thing where they claim that it's a very common assumption that when they deal with not just victims or even narcissists, or they just talk about it, they think that, oh, these people have had trauma sometime in childhood, that this trauma made them behave this way. Unfortunately, there is a lot of research that's kind of debunked it. And there's this very interesting case. Like there's this psychotherapist, Dr. Peter Salerno. Okay, Peter Salerno, Salerno. He has actually dealt in the area of he has a doctorate in clinical psychology, if I'm not wrong, or psychotherapy. So he actually said that, because his area of research also deals with epigenetic science. So according to the epigenetic science data, like DNA research, there is a lot of research and evidence right now which is it has not been debunked, and it's actually been almost indisputable. Okay, insofar as it actually suggests that there is a genetic basis to narcissism. So that the thing is this: most of the people who have actually undergone trauma do not turn out to be narcissistic. And like people like us who are like the survivors and victims, former victims of narcissistic abuse, not all of us, I think more than 90% of us do not end up as narcissists. So the whole thing is this: Dr. Peter Salerno actually brought out this point, which was very, very salient. He said that not only is there this whole thing with the genetic aspect to narcissism. Okay, yes, it's true. It's inborn, it's hereditary, it's genetic, but the choice of behavior, how they express it, the expression, okay, um, and of course there's certain varying degrees of narcissism, is actually something that is a very deeply personal choice. All these people chose it, okay, in the end. It's the same, it goes by the whole thing about psychopathy as well. Why do psychopaths still keep on doing it? Can we excuse them? Can we excuse them? No, we don't excuse them, although we say that some of them are born that way, uh, from young, okay, or they are like that, they start exhibiting these kind of things. It's very similar in the case of narcissism. And it's not just that. There's this whole thing about the complex of shame, okay. That was what I was telling my friend. I told him, no matter what, there is no excuse, okay. But all these narcissists had a not pre-genetic, it's a predisposition, okay, which is genetic. So it's the same way that we say that, oh, nowadays there's a lot of evidence also, not just in epigenetic science, to indicate there's such a thing called intergenerational trauma. Okay, in like religious terms, I mean, and even those who, in some circles, like they talk a lot about this thing called the generational curse. Uh, that's a religious thing where they interpret the thing about the original sin being passed down the line, everything. But I don't just think it's just that. It's also, it goes back to a lot of this. There's a lot of scientific basis to that. Because when we talk about, let's say, the our early beginnings as a human race, okay, or even a human species, we have different tribes and groups, and let's say that in this case we have certain situations where, let's say, as a tribe, as a group, we have to live with certain kinds of threats in our environment. And for example, caveman during caveman days, or if not caveman days, even, let's say, in the tribes, you had to face like invasion from enemies, or from foul beasts, and animals or predators and everything. So there's all this kind of trauma in your ancestors, okay, and some of them, this might have actually witnessed the passing on the deaths of their uh, family members or people in the tribe, and this thing gets passed down. It has been proven actually in epigenetic science that it's been passed down through the generations to different people. So in the same way, narcissism is really in the family. I'll be honest. I don't think that is a case where uh, if someone is a narcissist, I'm pretty sure that someone up there in the earlier generation, someone else prior to them has actually exhibited it. It could be the parent, one of the parents. If it's not one of the parents, could be great grandparents or parents. I mean, one of the ancestors. So um, it's not a random fluke. Okay, it's not like, all of a sudden, just this one person in the family has some you know narcissistic predisposition. It's not like that. Okay, so and one thing that I told this friend after that was, I also told like a senior citizen, this uncle in the gym whom I was talking to about narcissism. He claims that they don't know what they are doing. He said, no, actually I disagree with that. And Dr. Peter Salerno has actually basically actually debunked that as well. Not just him, but there are some other clinical psychologists or psychotherapists. But he's the one who's the foremost in that. He's because he deals with epigenetic science and DNA research. So yeah, and I really believe that a lot of that. I mean, of course, all of us are giving, online, we are giving different perspectives of what narcissism is, why it came about, and you have people like Dr. Ramani Devasula, who claims that it's not genetic, and as a clinical psychologist, but there are people who claim that there is, again, and of course, I believe that in the genetic aspect as well, because one thing is this. I was telling this friend about this whole thing concerning shame, okay, which is the main topic of this live session that I'm talking about. We that the current trend in this approach to narcissism and everything is that people have been saying that, oh, you know what, narcissism is the most shame-based thing, and that these people are trying so hard to actually uh, avoid the real self, which they claim, okay, which they claim is a very shameful self. But to begin with, we don't see it at all. People like us, the survivors and the sometimes they are sometimes, like, even victims, current victims, regardless of whether the person is like a overt narcissist, covert narcissist, whatever type. The fact that we can witness their behavior, okay, in such a shameless, they're really shameless way, okay, it actually goes the other way around. I wouldn't say that the narcissists that I met are actually very shame based. In fact, they are the most shameless people that I have ever seen. Okay, what do I mean by that? They do. I mean, I think we all know what they do. They do certain things which are really really totally shameless. You like boo and say that they're really nasty. Like, they can, let's say, in relationships they might be your partner or your date, your spouse. They can still sleep around with other people, and they cheat on you, and then when they are caught in the act, they'll still give excuses such as, you know what, you made me do it, it's all because of you, I cheated because of you, or it's not your fault. And it's like, the whole thing when we say, curse are those who actually call good evil and evil good. That's a verse in the Bible, but they're such people, and they are narcissists. Okay, why do they do that? They will just have a reason for everything. It's like, I do wrong because I'm right. I do wrong because you do wrong. It's like a, gaslighting and everything, but just not even gaslighting. It's scapegoating and blaming someone else. They just refuse to take responsibility, and this is a form of shamelessness. Okay, so they're so shameless. Okay, and one thing that Dr. Peter Salerno has actually said about this whole sense of shame is that he agrees, okay, that narcissists are in fact very shameless. They're not very, very shame based. They do all their best to avoid shame, okay, because they don't want to face it. Okay, that's the fact. And so when do they actually even show shame? For me, I mean, based on experience, I don't think anyone one of us has seen it before. There's a claim that it might happen when they experience narcissistic collapse, which is almost impossible to see or witness because we don't know and we will never witness it. Okay, as the victims and the former victims and survivors, and it's not just that, but Dr. Peter Salerno was saying that they are the least, they feel the least shame. Okay, so the issue is this: how did the psychiatric or the psychological community actually come up with this idea that narcissists are very narcissism, or NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder? How did he come up with this idea that they are the most shame based? Okay, this is something that I told my friend. You realize a lot of these things, like for example, even it's similar to the idea that, oh, narcissists turn out this way because of childhood trauma. How do we have this information? Do you know that actually in a lot of the clinical trials, we only obtain this by talk therapy or even testing and asking the narcissist questions. The narcissists, or those people who have narcissistic personality disorder or high level of narcissistic traits, this thing. And how can you trust people to tell you that? Because they can lie. Okay, if one person can lie, or even just one whole bunch of people, it need not be coordinated at all. It can just be a simple case of this group of narcissists, which happens to be there in the population, telling you the lies because you know what, they don't want to show you their true self. And the fact is, it has worked for them for like years. Okay, they spend years since their childhood doing all that kind of stuff, like deceiving people, manipulating them, abusing them. And we know that things like psychopathy and sociopathy, it starts from very, very young. Okay, same thing with narcissism. There is a very strong genetic component to it. Okay, so I'm more than ever sure that a lot of this thing about shame and childhood trauma affecting the way the narcissists behave, all of these are probably just lies. Okay, and I know for one thing, for sure, there's one thing. The former narcissist that I know of, okay, which is the ex-groomer, okay, uh, was doted upon and spoiled like you're a little god. You're treated like a little god or something like that, like godling by your parents, okay, by your father and mother. They treat you like a god where you can do no wrong, okay. This excessive thing was the exact opposite of the childhood trauma theory of narcissism's origins. So nah, I don't believe in the whole thing, and I don't believe in the shame based thing, because you know why? Considering the way that they they kind of like groom other people while trying to groom me as well, pretending to be my friend, and or even interested in me romantically or whatever, or then along the sideline you have all these other apps and everything on your phone which I wasn't aware of, okay, but which I kind of knew about it somehow subsequently via their so-called flying monkeys who were feeding me other news and everything. Again, all these people are very shameless because they are admitted to having open relationships and everything. Uh, yeah, the hypersexuality of narcissism and everything, and they're very sick. There's something going on between them and their parents and their, I don't even know, maybe siblings or whatever. It's so sick. Okay, it's so sick that I think that basically this life they are living is just a hell. Okay, but it won't be enough actually. They don't get punished yet, not in the way we expect. Okay, and then they will it will persist on later on into the next life. So I mean some people will not don't believe in that. You're atheist, you're not religious or you're not spiritual. I mean whatever, but this life they are living is basically a living hell. Okay, it goes without saying. So okay, but just to go back to the whole idea of like shame and childhood trauma, this I really don't believe that narcissists experience shame. Okay, they try so hard to run away from it. Okay, and the fact that they are pushing everything directly to everyone, um, to make them feel bad about themselves. I mean, them being the victims and the survivors, the way they're trying to make the targets feel bad instead of the narcissists themselves. It attests to the absolute lack of shame. Okay, in them, the shamelessness. Okay, and in fact, I remember telling the uncle in the gym, that actually to begin with, who are the true ones who feel shame? It's not the narcissist. Okay, it's absolutely not the narcissist. Who are the ones who feel the shame? It's actually the victims and the survivors. You know why? Uh, it can continue for years, even decades for some of these survivors, even after they have left the narcissist behind. You could be in no contact, or the person have, let's just say the narcissist have already died off or something like that. I mean, I treat my former narcissist as dead, although I know that these people are still around. Okay, they're still alive, and but the thing is this: with regards to shame is being felt by the victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse. It's not the narcissist who feels it. Why? Because for the victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse, the very thought that the very thought that how could I have actually become a victim. I mean I always ask myself that. I ask myself how could I was quite astute in reading people. Sometimes I jokingly say, I mean, I don't do that anymore, but I always tell my friends, including a friend who does astrology, I always introduce myself to people, say, hi, I'm Kevin. I actually read you in a crystal bowl with water and tea leaves or with my tarot cards. And I mean, my friend said, you're going to scare of everyone by letting them know that you're reading them. But no, I mean, I don't do that anymore. But I told that I do tell people, I'm reading you, okay? If I want to actually know what the person is behaving like. It's a kind of like technique. But okay, I asked myself why. How was I able to fall prey? And it's very clear that a lot of these narcissists, they are so adept at actually reading people and manipulating people. They actually give they read our vibes. If they know that we are actually going through something in life, like a crisis, some transitional moment. Like for me, I was transitioning between countries, leaving Australia, coming back to my home country, and then from there, um, I was also transitioning between jobs. Okay, at that point in time, I wasn't doing. I wasn't like in academia, and now I've gone back. So, um, but that whole idea of the thing about us transitioning or being at the point where we were in need of some form of support. This is something that narcissists can actually read. They can read. And the thing is this, I ask myself, how could I fallen prey? The thing with us as victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse is that we do not actually love to talk about this thing. Not even with friends, we choose not to. I mean, one reason is that we know some people won't understand it. They'll probably just gaslight us, deny us, blame, do victim shaming, and scapegoating. It's very common. Okay, when they don't know it, they'll blame us, the victims and the survivors. um, that's one thing. But the second thing is actually the shame. We feel ashamed of ourselves, okay, as the victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse. We ask ourselves, how could it happen? And this whole shame stops us from actually coming forth with our stories. Okay, we just don't want to share, and because we are also scared that what if we end up attracting the people like that again. Okay, and I kind of realize that it's very normal. It's very normal. uh, even a counselor told me, this kind of thing is like we can't end up projecting certain things that make narcissists want to jump in on us, because it's like we are showing our wounds, our blood to the sharks. Okay, so yeah, but that's the whole point. Narcissists do not feel shame. They're the most shameless people I have ever seen. Okay, and neither do they have any kind of so-called childhood trauma. Maybe they have childhood trauma, I don't know, but the childhood trauma is not the reason for them behaving that way. Okay, there are many people who have been through some traumatizing events in childhood. They don't end up becoming bad people. You could have, like, for me, I mean, I lost my grandfather when I was young. I never seen my my I never seen my paternal grandfather. I lost my maternal grandfather, whom I was very close to as a young teenager. Okay, does it mean that I become a narcissist? No, there's no such thing. And I wasn't really treated very well, for not always the best with my paternal grandmother, and I kind of like fear her. But does it make a narcissist again? No. So it has nothing to do with trauma. Okay, it has absolutely nothing. Okay, or I would say that it's not the main reason. This how's about how this how the psychological community actually think of this way. There are a few reasons. One, as I said, all this the wrong case studies by choosing to interview narcissists themselves, who are very 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 misleading. Okay, and then the second thing is, I mean, it's a natural trend of the psychological community where uh, you refuse. Okay, it's a truth. You refuse to actually bring in things like morality, social morality, spirituality, uh, religious morality, whatever, because there's this attempt to want to be atheistic in the name of science. Okay, but one thing, this is what the Nazis were doing during World War II. They were doing experiments on the Jews, and they say they did. I have read stories of how they even turned the Jews, the body parts, into soap bars. And it's like so disgusting. But did the Nazis care about morality? No, they couldn't care. It's beside the point. They said we are advancing the cause of the Teutonic race, of our own race and ethnicity or culture in vis-a-vis science. But oh my, so I think we should start factoring in such a thing called, like, social and religious morality and spirituality. Okay, and stop doing all these kind of so-called atheistic things about oh, don't let science and religion mix, or science and morality mix. It's nonsense, okay? Because that M. Scott Peck is this the writer of this book, People of the Lie. He has said that there's this tendency, obviously, in the psychological community to actually uh, divorce psychology, psychiatry, psychotherapy totally from morality. Okay, we don't care about morality, but can we actually have a diagnosis or such a thing called evil? Yes. Okay, he said that we can, and he said that the scientific community, basically the psychological community, would do very well to actually factor that in, because for years we've been like putting it out of the whole equation. Okay, so yeah. So but anyway, I just want to reiterate that simply, I don't think that narcissists actually feel shame. Okay, so what does that actually say about us as people who are like um, the so-called victim survivors, or even those who are actually working in the field of counseling and psychotherapy for those who are being uh, hurt and used by all these people, okay, those who are actually planning to enter it. um, I think it says a lot actually. It kind of just makes us think that maybe we should start trying to actually think that there's some good in everyone. No, we should stop thinking that, because it's not true. There are some people who are indeed not good at all. Okay, they are born this way, and we are born this way. As and what I mean is that they have a tendency to become manipulative. They know it, but you know what? It's worked for them. They've been expressing it this way, and they have no intention to change. Okay, that's why this whole thing about couples therapy and all this, it doesn't work. Okay, not with a narcissist. Okay, in fact, it actually endangers the victim and the survivor even more, especially in a couple relationship. Yeah. Yes. So what I'm gonna just get. I mean, I've been talking very long, but yeah, the best thing is still ultimately no contact. You don't have much of a choice, I guess. But I guess in the case where you really don't have much of a choice, I mean, you can't just leave like that. That I mean, Grey Rock is one of them, or finding kind of like a safe space where you can just escape from such people. And my friend who was the Aikido instructor just said something. He said, that actually he said it's getting more and more common. I was quite surprised to hear that from him. I said, me, you see that in the Aikido school? Yeah, he sees that when he's teaching it. He said he said some of these kids and teenagers are very they're very full of themselves. They love to manipulate people or do things trying to get their way. Um, and the ones who get manipulated are just you know necessarily just young people, but it could be maybe their parents, family, people in the school. And he said that especially because of social media, it actually ends up uh, becoming more prominent. Okay, we don't know. It's like a chicken egg question. Does social media cause narcissism or encourage it, or is it because of social media that we are now more aware? I mean, it's a chicken egg question. We don't really know, but yeah. But back to the whole thing is like it's I think it's important. There's no sympathy for the devil. We can't have a sympathy for a devil, because why? Sympathy for the devil for a narcissist, okay, is treason towards God. It's not just treason towards God, who represents whatever is good. It's also treason towards those who are suffering because of them. Okay, the victims, the survivors, who are trying to heal. We are betraying them by choosing to see them as people who have some need for sympathy. They don't deserve sympathy. They don't want it anyway. Okay, they love not being sympathized. They love being hated. Okay, so anyway, that's it for now. This is like my, 2 cents worth. Okay, and based on what how far I've read and done research in and everything. So yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm off now. I need to go and sleep. It's been kind of late. Just doing stuff and everything. So Okay, have a good one, everyone. Okay, bye bye.